on the field, because I'm sure you guys have saw the news and it caused a lot of chatter on these New Orleans streets. Mike McCarthy was fired by Jerry Jones. Well, I don't know if fired is the correct word. They just didn't decide to extend his contract or renew it going forward. So he is no longer the coach in Dallas, which means, of course, as Ian Rappaport reported, the Saints and Chicago Bears apparently have interest. Mike McCarthy has already actually approved of an interview with the Chicago Bears, and Ian Rappaport reported earlier this morning that the Saints are planning to interview Mike McCarthy next week. Now, of course, again, caused a lot of chatter within the New Orleans Saints fan base, because Mike McCarthy apparently is not a name that excites a lot of Saints fans, maybe. I don't know. I want to know you guys' opinion in the chat. All the social media audiences can be real different. Like maybe the YouTube audience is a lot more excited or welcoming of Mike McCarthy than my X or Twitter. I can't believe I just called it X. My Twitter audience was. But as you can see, I asked on Twitter, I said, hey, Saints fans, would you be happy with Mike McCarthy as the Saints head coach? And as of 7 o'clock p.m. on January 14th, with over 1,480 votes, 62% said no, and 37.3% said yes. Now, that's a very small sample size. New Orleans is a big city. Lord knows Jono Barnes' circle is not the be-all, end-all when it comes to the temperature of the Saints fans. But I mean, look, I'm not small potatoes by any stretch of the imagination. I have a very strong Saints contingent of fans. So it's not something, but it's not nothing as well. And 62%, really 63%, said that they would not be happy with Mike McCarthy as head coach. Former Saints offensive coordinator Mike McCarthy, by the way, if you know, you know. Throughout the whole Jim Haslett era, who was the guy leading the offense with Deuce McAllister and Aaron Brooks and Joe Hahn and Michael Lewis and Dante Stallworth and Boo Williams and Jake Reed? If you know, you know. Mike McCarthy was the offensive coordinator, so he has history with the New Orleans Saints. Rick Mueller, who was our GM at the time, who is now currently a Saints executive, has history with Mike McCarthy. Mickey Loomis, everybody's favorite, Mickey Loomis, our current GM, has history with Mike McCarthy. So it damn near seems inevitable that Mike McCarthy is probably a strong favorite, if not the favorite, to be the coach of the New Orleans Saints. And I want to know what you guys think as we talk about the potential possibility. Is that redundant? Potential possibility of Mike McCarthy being our head coach. Misdemeanor Crimes, who I hope is feeling better from her bout with COVID. And Misdemeanor Crimes, if you can, dug it out. There was a very interesting voicemail for you that you just got to hear to believe. I can't believe. This is what happens when it's the offseason. That's all I got to say, Misdemeanor Crimes. She does not want any of Dallas's cast-offs. I'm trying to be very careful not to say DC because I don't want this troll of my brother joining the show tonight. My dog says Mike McCarthy has never done anything bad to us. He made that bum. I don't want to call Aaron Brooks a bum, but I'm quoting my dog says he made that bum Aaron Brooks into a halfway decent quarterback. And soon as he went to be the offensive coordinator for the 49ers, that was the year that Aaron Brooks fell off a cliff. Brute Saint, Super Chat Legend says it would be so Saints for us to get Mike McCarthy. Hiring him means continuing to be mid, just like the DA hire. Mike is slightly better, but ain't taking us to a Super Bowl. Hurricane Mike says he actually would be happy if we got Mike McCarthy. Now, it's funny because my dog says we like the last cast off from Dallas, which was Sean Payne, which is a good point. Let me tell y'all something. Now, imagine if by chance Sean Payton was coming back to the New Orleans Saints, right? I would say 90% of fans would be excited. 90% of fans would be excited about Sean Payton. Many of us believe that he's a future Hall of Famer. Many of us believe that right now he's a top 5 coach. Many of us believe that he's one of the greatest coaches, period, of all time. You know what's funny, though? When you put Mike McCarthy and Sean Payton's resume together, technically, Mike McCarthy has a better resume than Sean Payton, folks. Technically, Mike McCarthy is a better coach, if you go by the numbers, than Sean Payton. So how does Sean Payton have such goodwill, not only with the Saints fans, but across the league, and Mike McCarthy is seen as a mid coach? Mike McCarthy has made it to the NFC Championship games more times than Sean Payton. They both have the same number of Super Bowls. They both, you can argue, wasted having a Hall of Fame quarterback, Sean with Drew Brees, Mike McCarthy with Aaron Rodgers. Mike McCarthy only has one extra season over Sean Payton, and Mike McCarthy has 4 more wins than Sean Payton. So I find it kind of funny that these very similar resumes, and yet we talk about Sean Payton as if he's a god amongst coaches, and we talk about Mike McCarthy as if, we're too good for Mike McCarthy. We don't need Mike McCarthy. It reminded me of a meme I saw going around where when Lizzo doesn't have a t-shirt on, feminists and all the women talk about how empowering she is. When Rick Ross doesn't have a t-shirt on, it's like, man, put on a shirt, you fat boy. And that's how it feels with Sean Payton and Mike McCarthy. Sean Payton's resume, empowering, Hall of Fame worthy, greatest coach of all time worthy. Mike McCarthy's resume, nah, we don't want Mike McCarthy in New Orleans. What you mean, Jono? Mike McCarthy? Man, go put on a shirt, Mike McCarthy. You got to admit, y'all, the hypocrisy is pretty funny. That's why I don't understand about fans sometimes. Like, 2 things about being a fan that I embrace. 1, being hypocrites. We're all hypocrites about something. In life, to be honest, but especially when it comes to sports fanaticism, we're all hypocrites about something. And 2, we're stupid. I embrace that. There's a lot of takes that I have sometimes that are stupid. Yes, I'm a fan. I'm not the president of the United States. I'm a fan. I could be stupid. But Payton and McCarthy, literally damn near the same resume. You can't make this up, as Ziggy would say if he was on the show. You cannot make this up. And yeah, we're talking about the possibility of Mike McCarthy as if it's like, oh man, doomsday scenario. We can't have Mike McCarthy in New Orleans. Now, I'm not saying how dare you not want Mike McCarthy, because I'll be honest, I wouldn't be excited if Mike McCarthy comes to the Saints. I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to be angry, but I'm not going to be excited either. I tend to also prefer a new voice, a new face, let some new coach come in and create his own legacy. Same way Sean Payton did in 2005. I don't want to retread just like we did with Dennis Allen in 2019. In 2022. I want a new voice as well. I want a Aaron Glenn or a Joe Brady to usher in their new era. Good or bad? We'll see. It's kind of like when you play that game show, right? And you can get the guaranteed prize. Here's a guaranteed prize of $1,000. Or do you want what's in the mystery box? And more often than not, everybody always say, $1,000 is good. It's a guaranteed $1,000, but that mystery box, I really, really want that mystery box because it could be $2,000 in that mystery box, right? The unknown is always more exciting, always more hopeful to fans than the guarantee. And Bruce Saint has said that Mike McCarthy is mid. Again, I feel like that's an insult to Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy has a great record as a coach. The only thing Mike McCarthy doesn't have over Sean Payton is good PR, apparently. Like, Mike McCarthy has a very similar record to Mike Tomlin, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, to Sean Payton. At one point to Andy Reid, before Andy Reid found the Patrick Mahomes treasure chest. Mike McCarthy is a good coach. So I'm not going to be mad if we get Mike McCarthy. I'm not going to be doing jumping jacks. I'm not going to be like, hell yeah, Super Bowl in the future. But I know that Mike McCarthy is a good coach. So I just kind of find it funny, the hypocrisy of Saints fans when it comes to how we talk about certain coaches, but then Mike McCarthy gets brought up and it's like, ugh, Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy's a good coach, a Super Bowl winning coach. He had his team in the playoffs 2 years ago, Bruce Saint. He had a bad year this year. I can argue, hey, Dak went down, but he still had Cooper Rush looking like a good quarterback. I don't think he's mid now. I think he's a fine coach. Honestly, if mid is making the playoffs, that's an upgrade for the New Orleans Saints right now. We're going on 4 years of not making the playoffs. Mid is an upgrade for the New Orleans Saints. I'll take mid at this point. What we have been has been mid with Derek Carr and Dennis Allen. I'm trying to go at least shit. Let's be decent. Decent could get us in the playoffs. Of course, we all want to be top of the line contenders, right? We all want to be playing for Super Bowls. I get it. I absolutely get it. It's going to bring me to my point a little bit about how Steelers fans are treating Mike Tomlin, because I really want y'all opinion on that. But shoot, making the playoffs every year, that's a good thing. I'll take it. I'll take making the playoffs because at least you got a shot. And you never know what can happen. And more often than not, you're probably going to lose to the better teams like the Josh Allen Bills or the Lamar Jackson Ravens or the Patrick Mahomes Chiefs. Again, of course, you got to have an elite, great quarterback above all to actually really be that top of the line contender. But making the playoffs and being a contender in general and having a shot at the dance in January, that's not a bad spot to be. And I can argue that Mike McCarthy will get the Saints to that point. But here are the coaching candidates officially as of now. Aaron Glenn, of course, who was the presumed favorite. It seems like I've seen some reports saying that he might prefer coaching for the Jets. Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady, who looked real good on Sunday with the Bills offense. Darren Rizzi, of course. Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. Commanders offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, former Cardinals coach. Dolphins defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver. The lone shot apparently is Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka. And now Mike McCarthy, former Dallas head coach. As of now, who would you guys prefer as your favorite, or who would you want as the next Saints head coach? Now, I'll be honest, we're all just fans. Like, we're not in these meeting rooms. We're not in these interview rooms. We all can for sure poke our chest out and say, this coach for sure is going to be the next great coach. We can only go by potential. I personally would prefer Aaron Glenn. I think Aaron Glenn will be the one I would get excited about the most. I could see me getting excited about Joe Brady, but I also feel like he has the lowest floor, which means that if he falls, it's going to be bad. But he also might have the highest ceiling. He might have the most potential, especially because it's an offensive league, and a lot of fans are saying we got to have an offensive guy this time. We cannot hire a defensive head coach again. I don't know so much about that. I mean, look at Baltimore. John Harbaugh is a defensive coach. Shit, just get a great quarterback, and who cares what the head coach does? Like, you'll worry about that later. So I'm not going to hold that against someone like Aaron Glenn or even Anthony Weaver, who's kind of impressed me the more I read up about Anthony Weaver this past few weeks. But I will say again, Aaron Glenn is my personal favorite because he's a good head coach. I mean, Detroit doesn't have like a dominant defense, but I've been impressed in general with how he's been able to have them play, especially in the midst of a lot of injuries this year. He seems to be a good leader of men. Again, we're not going to really find out until the person is a head coach. And I said this on Twitter last week, and of course, it opened up the floodgates. But I mean, I just think as a black man, that would be pretty cool to see a black guy finally be a head coach in a predominantly black city like New Orleans. I think that would be pretty cool. I'm not basing my whole criteria on, Aaron Glenn's black, so he needs to be our next head coach. I just think it would be pretty cool. Now, of course, some people took that the wrong way, unsurprisingly, on Twitter last week, but that's Twitter and social media for you. What can you do? So I think I would prefer Aaron Glenn. I can talk myself into Joe Brady, even though I feel like it's a risk. It's a risk, especially where we're as a franchise right now, having Joe Brady's young self as a head coach. It would be a risk. The ceiling could be amazing, but it would definitely be a risk. And Mike McCarthy, I would not be excited about, but I also would not be mad about, the way I know a lot of fans are going to get mad if it is Mike McCarthy, which, again, just surprises me because, I mean, I think it was a pretty clever meme. Like, say Sean Payne decides to quit the Broncos for whatever reason, say, I'm going back to New Orleans. Boy, we will all be having a parade on Canal Street right now. Whereas Mike McCarthy comes to the Saints, I feel like a lot of fans will be like, it'll be, I mean, I think my poll isn't exact science, but I think it'll be more about 60-40, with the 60% being the fans aren't excited. But I do think that some of that 60% will be able to be talked into Mike McCarthy by April. I mean, hell, y'all, we talked ourselves into Dennis Allen. Don't be afraid to admit it. You can look yourself in the mirror and say, yes, I talked myself into Dennis Allen. I know I did. So we damn sure it's going to be child's play to talk ourselves into Mike McCarthy, which absolutely can happen if he winds up being our coach. And my gut says, honestly, just because the way the tea leaves are going, especially if Aaron Glenn really does want to be the Jets head coach over all the other teams that he's interviewing for. You got Randy Mueller, you got Mickey Loomis. It just feels like it's almost preordained. Just like it was obvious that Dennis Allen was going to be our head coach, even though we did that interview process in 2022 where we all knew, like, yeah, Dennis Allen's probably going to be the coach. Kind of feels like Mike McCarthy is the favorite. Unless Chicago really falls in love with him and Mike McCarthy says, Derek Carr in the New Orleans Saints, Caleb Williams in Chicago. We'll see. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting. I think the only name on this search that I have not like really seen any excitement potentially in me whatsoever would be Mike Kafka. Even though I'm trying to be fair, I would just be like, wow, Mike Kafka, like, good Lord, is our situation that bad that we couldn't even get Anthony Weaver or Cliff Kingsbury? Good Lord, have mercy. It's going to be very interesting. But all I say is this, y'all. Give Mike McCarthy a shot. Give Mike McCarthy a shot, y'all, because he's at the same damn resume as Sean Payton. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Hey, y'all. I know we got over 350 people watching right now across all platforms, likely mainly mostly on Twitter. I do believe we have over 35 watching on YouTube. If y'all are watching on YouTube, can y'all please just do me a solid favor? It is free to do this, and it can make it even better as we have them on the couch with us. Hey fans, hit the subscribe button in 3 seconds to make this Bucks fan sad. 3, 2, 1.